My parents made me leave school to babysit my little brother without paying me. I ran away from home, but now my mom is following me and threatening to take me back, even trying to grab me forcefully. I'm a 15-year-old girl who will soon start my junior year in high school. I have a little brother named Matt, who's 3 years younger than me. Both my parents work full-time jobs in the business district. I was a planned baby, but Matt wasn't. My parents thought about putting him up for adoption, but couldn't bring themselves to do it. They don't know that I know this. When my mom ended her maternity leave 2 weeks early, we established a schedule for taking care of Matt. Mom leaves for work at 4:30 a.m., waking me up on her way out. I look after Matt until I have to leave for school at 7 o'clock. By then my dad is awake and takes over. I return from school at 3:45 p.m., and my dad leaves for work no later than 4 o'clock p.m. I take care of Matt until my mom gets home at 6 o'clock p.m. This routine worked fine for the first year. Now my mom's work hours have changed and she works later. I have to look after Matt until he falls asleep, and I can't rest until my mom gets home, which is usually between 10 to 11 at night. Besides caring for Matt, I also handle household chores. Despite being in AP classes, I have homework to do as well. Matt isn't easy to deal with. He has health issues since birth, causing him discomfort. He's a toddler and I understand that, but his tantrums and behavior make it hard for me to manage everything. 2 incidents deeply affected me, both occurring a week before the school year ended in May. I spoke to my mom and asked if we could hire a sitter to look after Matt so I could join some extracurricular activities. She responded that they didn't need to spend money on that because they had me. 2 days later, my mom came home early at 5 o'clock p.m., and after dinner suggested I ask the school to reduce my class load next year to spend more time at home since my dad also wanted to change his hours. I refused, and she became angry, insisting I needed to be more understanding and accepting. Feeling overwhelmed, I exploded, shouting that I wasn't my little brother's parent. I stormed off to my room, packed some essentials, and left while my mom was distracted by my brother. I reached out to my grandmother despite her estrangement from my mom. She understood the situation, picked me up, and blocked my parents' numbers after they bombarded me with demands to return home and accusations of shame. My grandmother mediated, and my parents agreed that I could stay with her until I sorted things out. Despite feeling guilty for leaving my brother, I also felt exhausted. Some family members supported me, while others urged me to accept my family duties and tough it out. I'm torn and unsure of what to do next. I searched up parentification since I hadn't heard of it before, and it matched my situation perfectly. Surprisingly, my grandmother is in talks with a lawyer to arrange for me to stay with her for my last 2 years of high school. After graduation, I plan to attend college in another state. Thank you all again for your kind words. If anything significant happens, I'll be sure to update you. Update post July 16th, 2023. Almost a month later, quite a bit has happened. I'll keep it brief. Once more, thank you for all your comments and support, which meant a lot to me and my grandmother, who sends her greetings. Firstly, despite my efforts, my father found my post and informed my mother, who then publicly criticized me on social media, claiming I made them look bad. She deleted the post a few hours later, according to my supportive cousins. A few days later, during a meeting involving my parents, grandmother, and our lawyer, my father apologized to me sincerely. However, my mother remained silent and visibly angry. Meanwhile, my little brother Matt was with my aunt at their house. Despite my mother's reluctance, they agreed to grant my grandmother full custody of me for the remainder of my minor years. The next day, with the help of my grandmother and some supportive family members, I retrieved my belongings from my parents' house. It wasn't until then that I felt a true sense of relief. Now I'm trying to make the most of my summer. I'm enjoying time with friends, swimming, and finally diving into books I bought 3 years ago but never had the chance to read. I'm also making plans for extracurricular activities next semester and organizing a birthday party for my sweet 16 in February. Alongside this, I'm assisting my grandmother with household chores and earning an allowance for it. Even my sleep has improved. It's a whole new way of living, and while it's somewhat overwhelming, I've never felt happier. Hopefully this will be my final post. I'm logging off Reddit to go shopping with my grandmother. Regarding important documents, our lawyer was present when we retrieved my belongings and my father handed them over. My mother is keeping to herself in the master bedroom. We've maintained complete no contact since I left home. While I don't harbor hatred towards them, I feel more disappointed and let down. As for my little brother Matt, I don't believe they would neglect or abuse him. Mom would get frustrated due to his fussiness, but Dad was more patient. They might have thought I had a special knack for handling him, but I wasn't about to take on that responsibility forever. I hope to reconnect with Matt when he's older, but with our mother's influence, who knows? Update post 2, February 18th, 2024, 7 months later. Hello everyone. I previously shared my story on the aita subreddit about the situation with my parents, mainly my mother. In summary, I was forced into a parentified role, dedicating almost all my free time to my younger brother. I reached my breaking point and sought refuge with my grandmother, who gained legal custody of me after my parents surrendered it to her. More details can be found in the 2 posts I made about the topic. Things have been going smoothly since then. I'm excelling in school, participating in extracurricular activities like robotics and debate team, and still finding time to read and hang out with friends. I've started communicating with my dad, but only over the phone and mostly about school and classes. He provides updates on my little brother Matt. I haven't directly spoken to my mother since custody was given to my grandmother. The last time I talked to my dad, he mentioned that Matt had noticed my absence and became more agitated. They hired a nanny to assist, but both parents had to reduce their hours. That was a week and a half ago. Last Saturday, I had my dream birthday party with a book theme. My cake resembled a stack of books, and the snacks were based on literary genres. Everyone came dressed as book characters, and I dressed as Sherlock Holmes. We had a cozy venue all to ourselves, and it was a relaxed and enjoyable party. To ensure safety, my grandmother hired security with a strict guest list, as some bullies threatened to crash the party after hearing about it at school. After a few hours, most guests left, leaving only my grandmother, myself, one of the guards, and my 2 closest friends. However, as I exited the restroom, one of my friends informed me that my mother had shown up demanding to see me. I hadn't informed any family members about the party, not even my dad or supportive relatives, to avoid this exact situation. Additionally, I hadn't posted about it on social media. Hearing the commotion, I decided to confront the situation myself. My grandmother was furious, and the security guard was holding my mom back the moment she spotted me. She became furious, screaming that I was a disgrace and that she would never allow me to cut her off. She warned me that if I knew what was good for me, I would come home. I didn't feel scared or angry, I was just tired. With a sigh, I pulled out my phone and calmly informed her that I was calling the police. I told her it was up to her whether she stayed to face them, but regardless, I was filing a no-contact order. Her face paled, and she screamed at me one last time before running off and speeding away in her car. I was relieved it didn't happen during the party, but it left me shaken. Needless to say, my grandmother and I will be consulting with our attorney tomorrow. I'm still unsure how she found out about the party, which is the most unsettling part for me. Do entitled, narcissistic parents possess some innate ability to continuously disrupt their children's lives? I'm starting to feel like I'll have to watch out for my mom for the rest of my life. In response to a commenter's question about narcissistic parents, another commenter explained that they continuously try to sabotage their children's lives because they refuse to acknowledge their faults and are too self-absorbed. They always place blame on others. Regarding my dad, I haven't spoken to him since the incident. I'm hesitant to go no contact with him as he seems the most remorseful. From what I've gathered through speaking to him, my dad seems to understand what I went through and is trying to change. I never told him about the party, so he couldn't have informed my mother. I plan to call him today to find out what happened after my mother left. Thank you for the link. It makes sense. Could she be tracking your phone? I considered that possibility and my grandmother agreed. We checked my phone but found nothing suspicious. I'm definitely considering getting a new phone. Regarding therapy, I'm already in therapy and it's really helping me deal with the guilt and pressure I felt after running away. I won't lie, despite my posts in the aita subreddit, a part of me wanted to give in and go back home. However, I knew that wasn't what I truly wanted, and I also realized that returning home would mean sacrificing myself unnecessarily. Update post 3, March 4th, 2024, 2 weeks later. I apologize for the delay in this update. A lot has happened and I've been busy with schoolwork. I spoke to my dad and explained what happened. He sounded horrified and apologized profusely, although I reassured him it wasn't his fault. He promised to investigate the situation and get back to me. Meanwhile, we consulted our lawyer, who agreed to my suggestion of filing a no-contact order against my mother, which is currently in progress. Additionally, my grandmother contacted my school to ensure that my mother is not allowed on campus or given any information about me. My grandmother and I both got new phones and we had her car checked for any tracking devices, but none were found. I thoroughly checked all my friends' social media accounts, but there were no posts before the party. I was puzzled. 5 days later, my dad called me back. He had pressured my mother and she finally confessed. She had run into another parent at a store, the mother of one of my recent friends who couldn't attend the party due to being sick. Unaware of the tension between my mother and me, she innocently provided enough information for my mother to piece together where the party was. Thankfully, she didn't know the exact time of the event. When my mother tried calling the venue, they had password-protected everything and didn't disclose any information. My dad was appalled by my mother's actions, and this incident became the breaking point for him. They had a massive argument, and my dad decided he was done. He's currently in the process of moving out and staying in a hotel, filing for divorce and full custody of my brother Matt. He even offered to pay the nanny extra to hire her himself for Matt's sake. Now, even the relatives who were previously on my mother's side are distancing themselves from her. Despite her insistence that she did nothing wrong and blaming me for being ungrateful and disloyal, there is hope for my dad and my brother. I believe that there's a possibility for a better relationship in the future, as long as my mother remains out of the picture. Only time will tell. Regarding cutting my mother out of my life once the no contact order is filed, I didn't initially want to do so because she's my mom. However, given her current behavior, I feel like I don't have a choice for my own safety and well-being, both mental and physical. It's unfortunate, but I know it's not my fault she's the way she is now. Moving forward, let's move on to the next story. In the second story, my marriage was ruined by the actions of family and friends. After being divorced for nearly 2 years, my father and 2 brothers, along with 4 friends, admitted while intoxicated that they had deliberately made me paranoid about my ex-wife cheating on me. They confessed to attempting to steal her away, despite her repeatedly rejecting their advances out of respect for me. They had planted negative thoughts in my mind, suggesting that she was only with me for financial gain and that she controlled the relationship. Even during tough times, like when I lost my job during the pandemic, they insinuated that she was being unfaithful because there was no longer a financial benefit for her to stay faithful to me. Sadly, I trusted their words and allowed their actions to ruin my marriage. I often found myself in arguments with my wife, constantly accusing her and doubting her love for me. I scrutinized every aspect of our relationship, insisting that as a high-value man, she needed to appreciate me more. During a 6-month period of unemployment, I shifted blame onto her, accusing her of not respecting me for not working, despite her efforts in managing our household finances during that time. Driven by paranoia fueled by the words of my family and friends, I began accusing my wife of infidelity with her coworkers. Eventually, she reached her breaking point with my mood swings, constant mistrust, and baseless accusations, and she decided to leave me. At first, her departure felt sudden and inexplicable, leading me to believe she left for another man. However, after learning the truth about how those closest to me conspired to ruin my marriage, I realized the extent of my folly. In the aftermath of their revelations, emotions ran high, leading to physical altercations. I've since severed all ties with each of them. Now I'm determined to make amends and reconcile with my ex-wife. She has agreed to meet with me, though she remains unaware of the full extent of what transpired. I'm uncertain about how to approach the conversation with her and make amends in hopes of rebuilding our relationship. How do I express my deep regret and desire for a second chance? Is there even a chance for us to reconcile? Some of you mentioned that I favored the words of my friends over my wife, but it's not a fair or complete assessment. I place trust in my father and brothers, especially my father, who played a significant role in manipulating me. It's not often that your entire family, as well as your friends, conspires against you. I accept full responsibility for how my marriage ended and for accusing my wife unjustly. I regret every part of it. If my ex-wife chooses not to accept my apology or never wants to speak to me again or reconcile, I'll respect her decision gracefully. I won't try to change her mind or interfere. I'll simply wish her well and leave her be. It's painful to acknowledge and see myself in this light, but it's true. I placed unwavering trust in these men, especially in my father and brothers. I never imagined that my own family would scheme to sabotage my marriage and pursue my wife. I absolutely won't interfere with her process of unburdening herself. I can only hope that she can find it in her heart to forgive me and perhaps consider reconciling, but I'm not holding my breath. I would honor her wishes, even if it means she never forgives me. To answer your question, yes, my dad and brothers were also involved in trying to pursue my wife. I omitted the details of the violence that erupted afterward from my post to avoid getting it banned. There was definitely blood spilled, and I ended up needing medical attention after the altercation. However, none of us pressed charges against each other, and we left it at that. On Sunday, I had the opportunity to meet up with my ex-wife. I apologized profusely and she was kind and understanding, but she couldn't bring herself to forgive me. She explained that forgiveness isn't in her nature, but assured me that she holds no grudges or anger against me, wishing me only the best in life. She advised me to cut ties with my father, as she pointed out the ways he had hurt me, and encouraged mistreatment by the rest of my family. She emphasized that associating with them would only keep me stagnant and unhappy. I shared with her that I had already cut them out of my life and had my first therapy session scheduled. She expressed pride in my efforts to heal. Our conversation was deeply emotional as we reflected on the failures of our marriage and the abuse I endured from my father and family. We cried throughout our discussion, finding solace in each other's understanding. Our conversation ended with a heartfelt hug and our goodbyes. In conclusion, forgiveness is earned through changed behavior and acknowledgement of harm, but it's not guaranteed or deserved. Some things shouldn't be forgiven, and that's okay. I accept that forgiveness may not be available to me in this situation, and I'm committed to moving forward and healing.